Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today is going to be another book video. I'm really enjoying doing the book videos lately, and I saw a booktuber I actually subscribed to the other day posted a video of like a mid-year book wrap up, like a book tag. She just answered a lot of questions, and that's what I'm going to do today. But that is going to be today's video, and I hope you get some good recommendations out of this. And if anyone has any book recommendations, please leave them down below. But let's get into it. Okay, so the first question is the best book I've read in 2025 so far. So we're 7 months into the year now, just early 7 months. So this is for the first 6 months of the year. So this is the best book I've read, and that is The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. Now, the reason this is the best book I've read for this year is because it is the first 6-star read I've had in years, and I really wanted this year to find a 6-star read. I'm so glad I did, and I still think about it. And I haven't had a 6-star read since I think 2023. And I was really struggling this year to even get many books I really enjoyed that much and thought about constantly. So the fact that I got this, I'm so glad about, and I love this book. The only other books I've read from Jessa Hastings was the Magnolia Parks series, which I've really enjoyed, but it's definitely not my favourite, and I don't even think I really rated any of them a 5-star. So I was going into this hearing so many great things about it, but it just exceeded my expectations, and I still think about it to this day, and I love the characters. The storyline is at times quite confronting, but in the end it just ends really beautifully, and without a doubt my favorite book so far of this year. The next prompt is actually the best sequel. So I've got a few favorite sequels so far this year, which is really good. I've been reading a lot more series this year, which I'm really enjoying, because if I haven't had enough of certain characters, I get to read them again in the next book, which I really love. But I've got a few. These are all the second book in a series that I've rated 5-star. I have loved other sequels in series, but they haven't been rated a 5-star. But these 4 books, I've all rated a 5-star, and I love them so much. I think out of all 4 of these, this is probably my favorite sequel, and that is Crown of Midnight, which is book 2 out of 8. I read this second before The Assassin's Blade, and I was obsessed with it. I remember reading this going, oh my god, I'm going to love the Throne of Glass series. This is what made me enjoy the Throne of Glass series so much. I love it. And this is really when you learn a lot more about Selena and her in the palace, and this is when I was like, oh my god, I love her and Kale together, which soon did I find out that I was wrong about that, but that's whatever. Anyway, this is a book I think that made me really get more into fantasy books, because before this series I read ACOTAR, and I loved ACOTAR, I really did, but it wasn't like, I didn't enjoy every single one of those books as much as I had been enjoying the first 2 in this series. Crown of Midnight, loved it. Will honestly recommend this series to everyone, but loved Crown of Midnight specifically, and it's what I think it is the reason that I continued it so quickly, the series, and just the best sequel, honestly. The next one I loved so much was Hunger Games Mockingjay, which is book 2 out of 5 now. And like I said, I rated all these a 5-star. I rated this one a 5-star. Absolutely adored it. Loved the first one, but this one just hit home more because it introduces so many more characters that are so lovable, and I hate that so much when they introduce such lovable characters that just get ripped apart, like ripped away from you. But I really had nothing negative to say about this. I loved this book. I love the movie obviously, but this book just, it was so much better than the movie, and so much more than I could have hoped for, really, because, well, I've never read The Hunger Games, and this year I've really delved deeper into, you know, like childhood kind of books and like the typical kind of classics for our generation, and I just love this so much. The next sequel I loved was Killer Instincts, which is book 2 out of 4 in the Naturals series, and I loved this one so much. It was, I think, I think out of the series I had 2 5-star and this was one of them. The first one, you're obviously meeting the characters, but this one, it delves deeper into the relationships that they're forming with one another, and I really loved that. And I think I've read this in like a day or two. I was obsessed with it. I am obsessed with this series purely because it's so easy to follow, it's so easy to read. The characters are really lovable, and even if they're not, they become lovable. Yeah, I just have nothing negative to say about this book. And then the final 5-star sequel I have is The Hawthorne Legacy, which is book 2 out of 3, but there's 2 other books you can read. And once again, love this book. Is there a theme here? They're both Jennifer Lynn Barnes, obviously. Loved this book. I loved, again, you meet the characters in the first book. The second book is really following the dynamics between certain individuals. You learn more about relationships that are about to form, and yeah, it's just very super easy to read, which is why I loved both of those books. And it kept me on my toes. When I thought I knew everything, I really didn't. 5-star sequel for me. So these are all the 4 5-star sequels that I would recommend to anyone. Obviously you have to read the first, but if you're stuck on the first for any of these books, please read the second, because trust me, it will keep you going. The next question is new releases that I haven't read yet but want to. Now, I only have 2 of these. I'm really bad at knowing when a release date is, like knowing when a book's about to come out. I don't keep track of that kind of thing unless I'm in the middle of the series and it's like the next book. So I'm really bad at that. So I only have 2 for these, but these I have seen in passing or I've heard people talk about them and I really want to read. The first one is Never Flinch by Stephen King, which I mainly want to read this because haven't actually read, which is kind of probably a shock and kind of embarrassing on my behalf, but I haven't read actually any of his classics, which I really need to get around to because I have them. I just need to read them. But I haven't read any of his classics. I've watched the movies. Sue me, okay, sue me. I have watched the movies but haven't read the classics. But in saying that, I've read 3 of his most recent releases and I adore them all. I really do. Fairy Tale, loved. Institute was like a middle ground, like I really enjoyed but wasn't a love. And then We Like It Darker, which wasn't my favorite but I enjoyed it. So Never Flinch by Stephen King has just come out. This is it. I don't actually know anything about it, but it's by Stephen King. I probably will enjoy it, and I saw it not that long ago at Kmart, and as soon as I saw the cover I was like, I need to read it, because even if the storyline doesn't sound particularly up my alley, it probably is, because it's Stephen King. I love his writing. The next one is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, and I don't actually know what this book's about, really, but the reason it's on my list is because I've only read 2 of her books, so I obviously need to read more of them, but the 2 I've read, absolutely adore them, 5-star both of them, and I don't enjoy romance books particularly, and I never really rate them highly. I never really will rate them above like a 3 or 3.5. So for me to rate both of the books I've read by her a 5-star, I think I should probably read more of her books. So they're the 2 I have. Now the next one is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And like I said, I don't know when releases happen. I don't keep up with that kind of thing. I really should start to, but the only reason a lot of the time I know a book is coming out is either I've seen it at the shops coming out, or it's come up on my TikTok, Instagram or something, or Lacey, my sister, tells me. So I don't actually know, like I don't keep track of those things. So I have 2 for them. One of them is The Last Wish of Bristol Keats, which comes out in November, I think like November 2nd. So excited for that, because as soon as I finished Courting and Bristol Keats, 5-star read for me, as soon as I finished it, I was like, this can't be the end. Like, this has to be in a series. Immediately looked up, and I was pleasantly surprised that they're coming out with one in November. So I can't wait for that. And the second one is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings, which comes out this month, July 15th. And I'm so excited to read it because, well, she just released a few months ago The Conditions of Will. And amazing, clearly. It's my favourite book of the year so far. So I'm so intrigued and excited to read Time of Your Life because, well, it's another book by her, and if that one's so amazing, like, I have really high hopes and I really hope they're met. Next question is the biggest surprise I've had this year, that meaning either a book I was surprised was really good or a book I was surprised was really bad that I hope would be good. Just a surprise from a book that I had. Now I have two. I have a book that I thought would be really bad but I absolutely devoured and I loved, and then I have a book that I had really high expectations for but they weren't met and it wasn't really good. The book that I had high expectations for and I really thought I'd love and I would completely devour was The Survivors by Jane Harper, which I only rated as a 3. So not the worst, definitely not the best book I've had this year. The reason I had really high expectations for this was because I love Jane Harper, I really do, and the books I've read previously from her, I loved. I rate a majority of them really high, like between a 4 and a 5 star. Loved them so much. They're very easy, typical thriller, like mystery books to read. They're always, I think, set in Australia, which I like that I've got that kind of connection, and I really thought I'd love it, but it just didn't hit this time, unfortunately. I watched the show, and the show, I will say, so much better than the book. I don't know why, because I obviously knew what was going to happen when I watched the show, but the show was so much better. So if you did read this and agree with me and you didn't really enjoy it, I would recommend watching the show because it's so much more enjoyable. It really is. It could be the actors in it because it's got a childhood crush of mine in it. But yeah, unfortunately, didn't really enjoy this one. But the next one I absolutely loved, and that was What We Saw by Aaron Hartzler. And I rated this a 5 star. I loved this book. I went into it going, I'm going to hate it. It had been on my card at that point, my TBR card at that point, for I think like 2 years. I hadn't read it for 2 years. I'd owned it for 2 or 3 years. And yeah, I just hadn't read it. I think it's because I hate real people on covers. I'm sorry, but covers really do make a difference. And unfortunately, I did judge a book by its cover. And I regret it because I love this book. Love the storyline. Did I love this? Obviously, I didn't love the storyline. It's very depressing. It's very dark. It's very traumatic for certain individuals in the book. But I liked how it wrapped up, and it really focused on the issue, and it wasn't trying to hide what the issue was, because it is about sexual assault. And is that messed up that I really enjoyed it? I don't think it is, because that kind of thing happens in real life, unfortunately. And I think the way that this author wrote about it was really quite nice and it just really honed in what the problem is, and I like that. Hated so many of the characters, but I also love so many of them. I definitely judged it, and I regret not reading this sooner because it was a 5 star for me. The next one is actually my favorite author, either debut or new to me. My first one is Mary E. Pearson, I believe. I don't know if that's how you say it, but that is the author of The Courting of Bristol Keats. And the reason I've said her is because I just love how simple she writes a fantasy book. And when I was reviewing the book, I said this as well. I said how I loved how it was a very easy, simple fantasy book to follow, and it kind of like really focused on explaining what these creatures were, which I loved. So I loved her writing. This is a new author to me, which is Suzanne Collins, which is obviously the author of The Hunger Games. Now, I hadn't read The Hunger Games before, and I loved them, obviously. So I had to include her because her writing she's so descriptive, but in such an easy way to understand. She's not using all these really big descriptive words, which I obviously love, because sometimes I feel like authors just use really descriptive words that, like, does anyone even know what those words mean? Probably not. Love her writing, obviously, devoured all of her books. So I think they're the two authors I would say are the best authors debut to me, like new to me. So they're the ones for them. The next prompt is the newest fictional crush. I have two that I could think of off the top of my head that I would be like, yep, I would love you as my boyfriend if I didn't already have an amazing boyfriend, because he should be in a book. He is written by a woman, my boyfriend. But putting him aside for now, obviously, these are very different boys, obviously, because one is from a fantasy book and one is from a very true real life kind of book. From the fantasy book, I have Dorian Havilland. I don't really know, but he is in the Throne of Glass series, and he isn't really, I wouldn't say, the biggest main character. Like, he's not the typical fictional crush, I wouldn't say, in a fantasy book, because he's not really in them overly. But I love him, and I love him so much because he's got such an amazing relationship with the main girl in the book, Selena, or Aylin, whatever you want to call her. And he's like, he was in love with her so clearly, and when he couldn't be with her, he was willing to still be her friend. And then he did fall in love with someone. She was unfortunately taken from him in a very awful way, but he just holds himself so nicely still, and he's just such a sweetie, and I love him so much. He's the type of guy that if things didn't work out between you in a relationship way, he would definitely not hold that against you, and he would still love to be your friend, and I love that. So he's my first fictional crush. The next one is Sam from The Conditions of Will, because he is once again written by a woman. I love him so much. He is just so, I can just imagine in my head him just being so beautiful to look at, obviously, and just so beautiful of a person to hang out with. And he's just so supportive of Georgia all the time, and he is the reason I feel like this book was half as good as it was, honestly, because I just have nothing negative to say. He never really did anything wrong in my eyes. Is that because I had a fictional crush on him? Potentially. But those are my two new book boyfriends, I'd say. The next one I have is books that made you cry. And unfortunately, I am not a crier from books particularly, so I only have one book on this list. And when I say cry, I mean teared up, they didn't even fall, unfortunately. I've been trying to find a book so desperately that makes me cry, I just can't. And I've read some seriously messed up books that I definitely should have cried from, but they just made me tear up. For this one, I have If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. Why couldn't I not say that? Anyway, I love this book. I rated it a 4.5, I believe. I really devoured it. I've highlighted so many, like a few quotes. So many I've got highlighted too. I would love to read the next one, see that one makes me actually cry, because I've heard that one is a lot sadder. The ending broke my heart, and that's why I cried, because for majority of the book, a lot of the time I will say I was cringing slightly at certain aspects, but when this couple finally ends up together, it just gets ripped apart immediately, and that really broke my heart. And I definitely put myself in that position, like saying like if it was me and Bodhi, and yeah, it made me feel very sad. So I did tear up from this book, but I'm still like holding out for a book that makes me absolutely like sob. I need a book to make me sob. So if you have any recommendations, please let me know, because I'm begging for you to tell me what made you sob. I need it. The next one is books that made me happy. Now, obviously, I have a lot of books that made me happy, because obviously I rated them a 5-star. I loved them. They obviously made me happy. But I mean, whilst reading them, books that made me happy. Now, I have 3 for this. The first one is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, obviously, which I rated a 5. Loved it. Loved everything about it. It is a romance. It centers around anxiety, and the main guy has anxiety, but he learns to overcome it with the help of the romantic interest, and I really loved it. And it was such a happy ending. and I wouldn't say it's predictable romance in a lot of regards, so I really enjoyed that, and it just really made me so happy, the ending specifically, because it just all ended up so perfectly for them, which I really loved. The next one is Wings of Starlight by Alison Saft, and I wouldn't say this made me happy in the typical sense of like, oh, it was such a happy ending, like everything ended up how they wanted it to. No, I wouldn't say that. The reason this made me so happy is because it brought out the inner child in me. It is very whimsical. It's very much a book that I would read to my future children, which I loved thinking that, because I was like, a lot of my books obviously are a bit racy. I'm not going to read them to like a little kid for a bedtime story, am I? This one, I really just loved how I could see myself reading it to future children of mine, and it's just very typical magical romance book that unfortunately doesn't have a happy ending in the typical sense, but it definitely has a happy ending overall, I would kind of say, for like the community in the book. Not so much for the two main characters, unfortunately, but it made me very happy because it brought out the inner child in me. I haven't read any like just plain fairy books. Like, it's all fae with sex and magic that like kills people and stuff, but you know what I mean? This is very like, just a child could read this and not get in trouble for reading it by their parents. So I love that. The next one is The Courting of Bristol Keats, which, again, it wasn't happy in the typical sense, but it had a very good happy ending, which made me realize made me think there's got to be a second one, which made me happy again, because I found a book series that I've begun that I love, and it made me happy in the regards very easy to follow, and it made me think of like the first ever fantasy book I read, which was Fourth Wing, which is, I would say, a lot easier to read than a lot of fantasy books, and it made me feel that way again. Very easygoing, very easy to follow. Loved the characters, loved the storyline, everything like that. And I love the main couple in this book, I really do. So that is why this book made me so happy. The next question I have is the most beautiful book you've read or bought. I have The Conditions of Will and Wings of Starlight, which the covers really speak for themselves. This one, look, it's got sprayed edges. It's like sparkly, beautiful, like hard cover. Look at the inside. That's what I'm talking about. I love a hardcover. I just think this is very beautiful to look at. And then obviously The Conditions of Will, which I'm pretty sure Jess Hastings' friend actually paints all of these covers. Like, she painted this. So obviously that's very unique and very, like, it's beautiful. Like, how can this not be beautiful? I love all of Jess Hastings' covers. I don't really like the new Magnolia Park series, like their covers. I prefer the old ones, but this is just beautiful. In regards to this book, I also found this book extremely beautiful because of some of the quotes inside. I will read to you some beautiful quotes. That doesn't expose me too much for being a depressed queen. So I hope there is one. It's gonna be embarrassing otherwise. I feel like this quote is quite beautiful, and I feel like it is a perfect quote for this book. And it says, "The nicest thing you can ever do for another human being is see them. And really see them at that. To be understood is one of the most base desires. To be understood is one of the most base desires we as people have." And I just think that is beautiful. And who wouldn't agree with that? I don't know. And then this one is obviously beautiful, and it says, Wouldn't it be so lovely if we viewed ourselves through the same lens as the people who love us? And I just think that is so beautiful, because I think often in life we don't appreciate ourselves enough, and that's me saying it, and I know I don't. So the next book I have for the most beautiful book is actually Spark of the Everflame, and that is for the quotes inside this book, which I remember loving. So let's see if I can find you one. "We never needed to see all of each other to love all of each other." And "You asked how I knew your mother was the one. I just knew. There was never a decision to make. Whatever path she was on, that was where I belonged, by her side, and by yours. Any other option was unthinkable. And that honestly does sum up this book a lot as well. So they're the most beautiful books I own for this year so far. And I hope I get some more amazing quotes and amazing covers. The next question is a book you need to read by the end of the year. Now, I have a few of these because I'm so slack at actually reading the books on my TBR card or reading books that I've wanted to read for so long. So I have a few. First one is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, which I already have on my TBR for this month. So I really am praying I get to it. I think I will because I'm really in the mood to read it. I really want to pick it up. I'm just waiting for the right time this month. The next one is Saving Six, which is the third book in the Boys of Tommen series. The main reason I need to read this is I've had it on my TBR card for way too many months now. There's nothing stopping me reading it other than they're more of a chunkier book. But there's literally nothing else stopping me. I loved the first two books and I know the series is something I can get around. Like, I know I'm going to love it, so I really need to read that. The next one is Kingdom of Ash, which is the final book in the Throne of Glass series. And the reason I'm saying I really need to get to it is because I really, really, really hope I finish the Throne of Glass series this year. I started it the last month of last year, so I think I'm doing pretty well. I'm currently in the middle of the tandem read. It's going slow, but I'm gonna get there. I'm really hoping. So once I finish that, I'm thinking I'm gonna finish the tandem read because I'm not reading it consistently. I think I'm gonna finish it hopefully by the end of August, hopefully. So that leaves me a few months to then finish Kingdom of Ash, which is a huge book. I think it's like 800, 900 pages, but I'm going to get to it. Now, the next three books I don't actually own, but I'm going to own. I'm telling you right now. Next one is Talking at Night, which I think it's been described as kind of like the one with Daisy Edgar Jones and Paul Mescal. I'll put it here. It's been described as that show, and apparently it's really sad. It has a really sad ending. I've seen everyone sob at the ending, so I really want to read that. And the next two are Glow of the Everflame and Heat of the Everflame, which are the second and third book in the Spark of the Everflame. I don't know what the series is called, but that series. And I rated the first one a 4.5, and I really think I'm going to enjoy the next two, so I would really love to get to them. But no reason I haven't, except they're chunky books too. I think the last book is nearly 1,000 pages, not up my alley, but I really want to get to them. The next prompt is actually 5-star reads this year, so how many I've had and what they were. I've had a really good, I would say, 5-star year so far. I wouldn't say I'm particularly generous with giving 5 stars. I wouldn't say I'm harsh. Like, I wouldn't say I'm either. I'm just like, I just go off my feeling in that moment, and I hate when people are like so picky and they just will never give a book 5 stars. I'm not like that. If I'm feeling a 5-star in the moment, I'll give 5 stars. This year so far I've had 16 5-star reads, and I believe I've read 39 books. Wow, that's pretty good, I'd say. That's nearly half. I will tell you now what those 5-star reads. I won't give any explanation, just go off the vibes. They were Never Lie by Freda McFadden. I'm not even going to say who they're by, I don't even know. Crown of Midnight, Onyx Storm, Killer Instincts, The Inheritance Games, The Assassin's Blade, The Hawthorne Legacy, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Can I just say majority of them were all in 1 month, which is insane. The Hunger Games, What We Saw, The Conditions of Will, which I actually rated a 6-star, The Courting of Bristol Keats, The Hunger Games Catching Fire, Wings of Starlight, Yours Truly, and Sunrise on the Reaping. So they're all the 5-star books I've had so far this year, which is amazing. So the next one is 2025 rereads. So like books I would love to reread in 2025. And I have never reread a book from memory unless it's a book I've probably read in high school. Like I'm currently reading To Kill a Mockingbird, which I did read in high school, but I don't remember. So I've never actually reread a book, but I have 3 books on here that I would love to reread, and I absolutely love them, and I just really would love to get to them again this year. If I don't, I'll probably get to them down the line. The first one is Fairy Tale by Stephen King, which I talk about so much, is probably getting so annoying, but it is a 6-star read for me and I absolutely loved it. And I would love to read it again purely because it was the first Stephen King book I've read and I was obsessed with it so much to the point that I still think about it to this day, and that was years ago. So I would love to read that again. Next one is Honeybee, which was also another 6-star for me, and I also read that the same year. And I read both of them, I believe, in 2023. So I feel like enough times passed where I don't really remember them fully, but I just remember loving them. So I would love to read Honeybee again. And the final book I would love to read again is actually 3 books, and that is the Once a Broken Heart trilogy, which I think out of the 3 I rated, 2 of them are 5 and 1 a 4.5. Now, they are such an easy fantasy book to read once again, but I love the storyline and I love the characters, and there's actually a series before that you can read. You don't have to. So I would love to maybe potentially reread that series and then go into reading the other series. The next question is book that I enjoyed with mixed reviews. Now I have 4 options for this, and I've already talked about a few of them in this video so far, but I don't typically base my opinions, like obviously I'm gonna read books that are hyped up on TikTok and everything like that. I'd be stupid not to. They're literally being talked about constantly, but this year I've really just gone off like how I felt. Like I really loved the cover, I really loved the blurb on the back. I'm probably gonna pick it up. And a lot of the books like on Fable have really low ratings, but I don't let that sway me. So the first one is obviously Wings of Starlight, which the reviews I originally saw, amazing. Like everyone was saying they were obsessed with it, but then after I finished it, a lot of people were like, oh, it's kind of like basic, it's very YA, which it is, like, duh. It's a prequel to Tinkerbell. Like, it'd be silly not to be, like, kind of YA. And obviously I said I'd read it to children, so it's definitely YA. And even Lacey didn't enjoy it as much as me. I think she rated like a 3 or a 3.5 or something. And yeah, I loved it. I rated it a 5. I would read it again, like I said, down the line. So it did have mixed reviews. I did see majority good, but obviously there's like the few like people that are like, no, terrible. So that's the first book. The next one is According to Bristol Keats, which when I originally got this book, I had never heard anything. Once I had read it, so many people said how boring it was, they will never read that kind of book again, which I did find quite shocking because it is so similar to like the easy fantasy like book like Fourth Wing, like so easy to follow. And I was surprised people didn't enjoy it as much because the characters in it are so lovable, and yeah, it's just so, I just really enjoyed it. Like I have nothing negative to say. It had a 3 point something average, really not high, but that obviously didn't stop me because I absolutely devoured it, and I would recommend this book to a lot of people. The next one was If He Had Been With Me, which a lot of people did have similar thoughts to me. I did end up rating it 4.5. I think majority of that was because of the ending. I loved the ending. Well, as sad as it was, I loved the ending. But a lot of people said it's quite cringy. They didn't really understand why a certain character, like, she wears a tiara in the book and people didn't really understand it. I understand it, obviously. I've learnt to understand it. But it's a very, like, on again, off again kind of, like, romance. It's definitely not, like, the cheesy kind of romances, but it's very, like, will they, won't they kind of thing, which I understand a lot of people don't enjoy, and I don't a lot of the time enjoy that either. But I've heard the second one's amazing, so I really did enjoy it. Now, the next one, I'm so shocked it has mixed reviews because I absolutely loved it. Everyone that I know read it loved it too, so to hear the mixed reviews is shocking. But that is Onyx Storm, which is the 3rd book in the Fourth Wings trilogy at the moment. Imperium World, I think it is. I loved this book, and it could be because I loved the first 2 so much. The Fourth Wing I rated a 6. Iron Flame I rated a 5. Absolutely love this series. Again, super easy to follow. I think a lot of people didn't like it because it didn't end how people wanted it to. I know that for a fact. Obviously, I wanted it to end a different way, but you can't, like, there's going to be other books. I love the characters in this book. I love this world. I love the dynamics between the friendships in this book. I love the main, like, males in this book. Like, one of them I absolutely obsessed with, and I have nothing negative to say about this book at all. I loved it, but I know a lot of people were wanting more from this book, or wanting things to, like, kind of come in the head. And I did see a lot of people were annoyed with this book because they thought there was extra characters in it that weren't in the other books, which I do agree with. There was a lot of people in this book, and some that I do not remember particularly from the other books, but that didn't really bother me that much. Like, I just was kind of like, whatever, they're in it, they're not, whatever. Mixed reviews for this one. The next one is my 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. So I have 5 books in here that I do predict will be a 5-star. I won't obviously be up, like, I'll be a bit bummed if they're not a 5-star, but, like, it is what it is kind of thing. These are mainly based off what other people have said about them, and if I think that sounds interesting, or if I think that's my kind of book that I'll enjoy. So I have Empire of Storms, which is currently what I'm reading. It is in the tandem read for the Throne of Glass series, but I've heard in the tandem read out of Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms, everyone is obsessed with Empire of Storms and not so much Tower of Dawn. And what I'm going off so far, I am enjoying Empire of Storms more so far, but that could also be because the majority of the tandem read chapters so far I've read have been in that book. But that one is centered more around Aelin, which is obviously the main character, and her becoming queen, whereas the other one is about Kale, and not so many people like him. But I'm expecting that to be a 5-star for me. And then the next one is also a part of that, which is Kingdom of Ash, which is the final book in the Throne of Glass series. And again, the main reason I think I will love this book is because it's the end of the series. It's obviously going to wrap up everything. I've already loved the series so much, and I've heard amazing things. I haven't heard anything negative about that one. I'm not going to enjoy the length, I can tell you that much, but we'll get over it. The next one is The Way I Used to Be, which is obviously a very traumatic, very confronting book, I've heard. But I know that going into it at least, so I'm not going to be shocked, I don't think. But I do, unfortunately, love a traumatic book. I don't know really what that says about me, but it can't be worse than A Little Life. I'm sorry, nothing could be worse than that book, and I read that book, and that was a whole different experience to what I'm used to, so I don't think anything could be as bad as that, like, traumatic wise. But I think I will enjoy Where I Used to Be. The next one is Shatter Me, which is in the series, and I would really love to read the series. I don't know if I'll get to the series all this year, but it is in a dystopian world, and I do love a dystopian book. I love The Hunger Games, love Divergent, all those movies, and I have those books. I would love to get to them too, but Shatter Me, I really do think I will enjoy. I'm hoping. I don't actually really know anything about it other than people love it. And the next one is Glow of the Everflame, which is the second book in the Spark of the Everflame series. I'm so sorry I don't know what the worlds are called. I'm terrible at that. But that is the second one, and I've heard people absolutely love that one, and that is their favourite. And I really think it will be my favourite too, based on how the first book ended. So I can't wait to get to that one. Now, the final question I have is my top 3 series this year. I have some amazing series I'm in the middle of that I've read, everything like that. These are my top 4 series in no particular order, okay? I have Throne of Glass, which, like I said, I am in the middle of. I have 3 books left. I'm currently reading the tandem read, and then I have 1 book after that. I'm obsessed with it. I did start it at the end of last year, but I think I only read 1 book. I'm obsessed with it. It is such an amazing fantasy series, which I knew it would be based on how everyone was reading it so quickly and they were so invested, and that is me. Love it, love the characters, very, like, quite easy to follow, I'd say, but a lot going on. Love that series. 5-star series. The next one is The Naturals, which I did finish. There is a novella, don't know how I'll read it, but The Naturals. Such a good YA series. Such a good YA series. And Jennifer Lynn Barnes is really good at writing such amazing series, because I've read the Hawthorne Legacy series, but The Naturals is just something else for me, and I've really enjoyed it because I love Criminal Minds, I love Bones, I love Law and Order. Again, what does that say about me? That I like good things, clearly. But that is very similar, the book series, which I loved The Naturals so much, and I love the characters again, love the storyline, very easy to follow, would recommend to anyone, especially if you like crime shows. Now the next one is The Hunger Games. Obviously I had to have The Hunger Games on this. Obviously I had to have it on this list. I want to read, I don't have to obviously, but I really would love to read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Want to get to that down the line, but I've read the original 3 Hunger Games and Sunrise on the Reaping, and it's again a 5-star series for me. Absolutely obsessed with it. If you haven't watched the movies first, why? Like, watch them. But the books are so much better than the movies. I feel like I connect so much more to the characters in the books than in the movies. The characters are so lovable. Don't get me wrong, there's some that really annoy me, but the characters are so lovable, especially Haymitch and Finnick and Katniss. I love them. Now, the next one is Harry Potter. Now, again, a classic, obviously. I have read probably, I'd say 50-50, like last year and this year, and I'm currently on the final book. Like, I need to read the final book. And again, if you haven't watched the movies, watch them. I know so many people in my life haven't watched the movies, or they just don't enjoy them. And okay, I like appreciate your opinion, but you're wrong. Can I say? Harry Potter just holds such a special place in my heart, and I honestly think it's my #1 series ever. It's just everything to me. I love the characters. Again, love the characters. Some obviously get on my nerves, but overall I do love the characters. Hermione is a badass, literally obsessed with Hermione. Neville doesn't get the recognition he deserves. Dobby, why is he in the book so much more than he is in the movies? We need to talk about it because I love Dobby. Love so many of the teachers, and it just, I'm obsessed with it. I'm so excited to read the final book and give you my thoughts, because I can never rave about that series more. Love the Harry Potter series. That is my series ranking. So that is the end of my video of my mid-year book wrap-up, and I really hope you enjoyed. I hope you get some book recommendations. Like I said, please leave me any book recommendations if you have any. I would love to hear books that you loved, or hear your opinions on the books I loved or books I didn't love so much. I found this so fun to film, and I obviously have never done this because I haven't even had my YouTube channel for a year, but I would love to see what my opinions are at the end of the year. But yeah, that's the end of my video, and I hope you really enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!